The debate stage is set between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. They have agreed to at least one debate in September as scheduled. Yesterday, Trump spoke about it during a lengthy news conference filled with attacks against the Democrats. Meanwhile, Harris and her running mate, Tim Walz, courted union members in the battleground state of Michigan. And for more on all this, I want to bring in our political panel. CBS News political analyst and GOP strategist Leslie Sanchez, and CBS News political contributor and the chief communications officer for Move On, Joel Payne. And Joel, I want to start with you. One of Trump's latest criticisms of the Harris campaign is that the VP has not held a press conference, including a remark I want to play for you from his presser yesterday.
She doesn't know how to do a news conference. She's not smart enough to do a news conference.
All right, so Joel, if we can, we're back. Is there a strategy to that? Is there something to the campaign, the Harris campaign, not holding press conferences right now? Is there concern that this kind of messaging of inaccessibility could gain traction with voters?
Well, when you asked, is there a strategy to that, I thought you were asking about Donald Trump and that rambling press conference he did yesterday. There was no strategy to that. I think that the American people are going to hear plenty from Kamala Harris. She's going to sit down plenty between now and Election Day. You can't get elected president without doing that. So I think concerns about that are overblown. But I'll just tell you this, back to kind of President Trump and his messaging and Republicans' messaging. I don't really know what the plan is there. I mean, there was no discernible message that came through that press conference yesterday. And it seems like their plan is to spend the next 90 some odd days questioning Kamala Harris's heritage, questioning Tim Walz, who served in the uniform for 2 decades, talking about tampons in bathrooms, and just speaking in ways that the American people don't fundamentally understand. So, that's really all I could take from what Donald Trump and what J.D. Vance have been doing. They are not running a campaign that is focused on what the American people care about. They're running a campaign focused on grievance, and I don't really think it's sustainable. So I'll be very curious to see if the Trump campaign can get back on track. But it seems like they are very much rattled over the last few weeks.
All right. So, Leslie, former President Trump responded to a clip of our CBS News exclusive with Joe Biden yesterday, talking about a peaceful transfer of power in January. I want to get your reaction to some of what he had to say on the other side. But first, let's listen.
If Trump wins, no, I'm not confident at all. I mean, if Trump loses, I'm not confident at all. He means what he says. We don't take him seriously. He means it. All the stuff about if we lose, there'll be a bloodbath. Have be a stolen election.
Of course, there'll be a peaceful transfer, and there was last time, and there'll be a peaceful transfer. I just hope we're going to have honest elections.
Leslie, there's been some mixed messaging surrounding former President Trump accepting the results of the election if he does not win. Is there concern from the larger Republican Party about potential violence or unrest in January should that happen?
Not at all. I think that's fear-mongering on behalf of the president. I thought it was really distasteful on behalf of the president to say something like that, because that's not really reassuring to American voters that there will be this peaceful transfer of power. I think the fundamental argument around that, and it could be heard on both sides, is that they want fair and free elections. They want to ensure the integrity of every ballot. They want to ensure the integrity that every ballot that is counted is from a legitimate voter, and it isn't, ballot harvesting or some of these things that you've heard about in the past. And if you ask voters, it's interesting. If you ask voters in particular states, they'll say, "Oh, it's happened a long time. I'm very curious." They want to be reassured that there is security around these ballots, and I think that's a responsibility that comes on both sides. So fundamentally, there should be agreement, but there will be a positive and peaceful transfer of power.
There is a new poll, Leslie, that shows Vice President Harris has surged to a 5-point lead nationally over Trump. We know state to state those numbers are closer, tighter, different. How can Trump attempt to curb the growing popularity, the surging popularity, especially with younger and minority voters?
It's a really good question. And I think Joel and I would kind of going back to what he was talking about, the first point, and what was the point of all of this. The closer, there's an adage that the closer you are to a candidate, it's the enemy of hero worship. We all love these ideals of candidates and to project the idea of a candidate, Republican or Democrat, but it's not until you really get to know them do you really start to see what they're fundamentally about. I think with Donald Trump, his argument is going to be authenticity. And when you see these polls, the bottom line is they are too close to call. They're within 5 points. And this many days out, that is a dead heat. And if you look at other states, Trump is ahead in all of those battleground states by small margins, with the exception of Michigan and Wisconsin. So it's anybody's race right now. What Trump was able to do, I think, in that press conference, kind of rounding this out, is throw the gauntlet down about having these debates, about putting pressure on Kamala Harris to have a sit-down interview, and that exposure will allow voters to see for themselves, and have a compare and contrast between the two, not just their personalities, but their direction of the country going forward.
Joel, your reaction?
Well, I think just to the question about whether or not the polling means anything, I think any Democrat that is spiking the football right now would be silly. And I don't talk to any who do that. It's a close race. It's going to be a close race. Really, what Kamala Harris has done is she's consolidated the Democratic base, which was necessary because Joe Biden had clearly not been able to do that until the point where he dropped out of the race. And if you look at some of these polls, like that's not a win number. I saw the poll that we put up on the screen, 42 to 37. That's not a win number for either candidate. Doesn't factor in undecided voters swinging at the last minute. I tell people when they ask me about what to think about this election, pay attention to polls after Labor Day, and don't pay attention to them too hard in terms of what they say in a moment. Look at where they go directionally. Is one candidate trending one way, up or down? What's good for Kamala Harris is that she's trending in the positive direction. Her favorables are up. People are learning more about her, learning more about her plans for the country, and they are buying into them. And I think that's what's probably concerning the Trump fans ticket right now. And that's the direction that they've got to change if they want to have a chance at winning this fall.
Joel Payne, Leslie Sanchez, thank you both for the conversation this morning. We appreciate it.